There's an old saying, skin is the fabric of the living world. In the tattoo industry, many taboos have been passed down. The most common ones are, young people shouldn't tattoo guangong on their backs. Women shouldn't tattoo couples. If guangong opens his eyes, blood will be shed. If Guanyin closes hers, peace will be lost. At first, I thought these sayings were just baseless superstitions. But after one strange coincidence after another, I began to waver. Today's story contains a few scary elements, so anyone planning to get a tattoo should watch carefully. This happened in the year 2029, when I was studying at a university in Fujian. At the beginning of the new semester, a very strange roommate moved into our dorm. I'm the kind of person who easily gets along with others. Within just a few days, I had become close friends with my other roommates. But the newly transferred Shufan always kept her distance. Usually I would help her pick up packages, yet she would only reply with a flat, "Oh." She slept on the bunk below mine, rarely went out, and always just sat on her bed in a daze. After living together for about half a month, I noticed that Shufan always looked lifeless. The rest of us simply thought she had social anxiety, so we gradually stopped trying to start conversations with her. But around the middle of the semester, something happened. One night, all my roommates had already gone to sleep. I was still awake, watching a show, and lost track of time. Just as I was about to turn off my phone and go to bed, I heard a strange giggling. The sound came from the lower bunk. I turned over and leaned over the edge of my bed to take a look. What I saw nearly scared me so badly I almost peed myself. For some reason, Shufan was no longer in bed. She was sitting at the desk, looking into the mirror. The dorm lights were all off and the room was pitch black. Yet she was putting on makeup in front of the mirror, smearing lipstick while giggling creepily. The scene made my skin crawl. Without thinking, I blurted out, "Shufan, what are you doing up so late instead of sleeping?" At the sound of my voice, Shufan stiffly raised her head and looked straight at me. By the faint moonlight shining through the window, I could see her terrifying makeup. Her face was caked with pale, ghostly powder, and her lips were painted a bloody red. She looked exactly like a female ghost from a horror movie. Seeing that in the middle of the night, I couldn't help but scream. The scream woke up all the other roommates, who sat up groggily, asking me what had happened. But before I could explain, Shufan didn't say a word. She just climbed back into her bed, pulled the blanket over herself, and lay facing the wall. I had no choice but to explain to the others that I just had a nightmare. Hearing that, my roommates crawled back under their blankets and drifted off again. I hugged my quilt tightly, trying to calm down and telling myself that sleep would make everything better. But it wasn't over yet. Not long after, I finally fell asleep just past midnight. I suddenly heard a click sound, like someone opening the window. Because I'd already been scared earlier that night, I was sleeping lightly. The noise woke me up again. In the darkness, I seemed to hear someone climbing onto the windowsill. I sat up and looked toward the balcony. What I saw this time left me completely stunned. There were two people. One of them was Shufan. She had one foot on the window frame, clutching the window as if she was about to jump. The other was a man standing beside her. From his back, he looked like a young guy, urging Shufan to climb outside. It took me a moment to snap out of my shock. Our dorm was on the 5th floor. If she really jumped, not even a god could save her. I shouted, "Shufan, what are you doing?" At the sound of my voice, both Shufan and the man turned their heads to look at me. Shufan, still wearing her heavy makeup, gave me a creepy, twisted smile. The man's face, however, was covered in a thick mist. I couldn't see his features clearly, but I could feel the burning anger in his gaze as he stared at me. I didn't dare think twice. I shouted as loud as I could, "Everyone, wake up! Shufan's going to jump!" The moment I shouted, Shufan's eyes, which had rolled back in their sockets, suddenly returned to normal. The eerie smile on her face vanished, leaving only confusion. The shadowy figure of the man beside her also gradually faded away. By then, all my roommates had woken up. When they saw Shufan on the windowsill, they rushed over and dragged her back inside. Once we got her safely onto the bed, it seemed like Shufan finally realized what. A few days before the start of the semester, Lee Jonglin and a few other punk friends were riding motorcycles. They were still very young, only chasing speed and thrills, never thinking about the consequences. When they passed a traffic light, Lee Jongping was showing off with a wheelie. Suddenly from the side, a 4.2-meter semi-trailer truck appeared. The result was predictable. Neither side could stop in time, and they collided head-on. Motorcycles are often called flesh wrapped around iron. Li Zhongping was killed instantly, his body torn apart. Shufan was devastated for a long time, before she finally came to this university to start a new life. But during that time, she would dream of Li Zhongping almost every night, as if he were coming to find her. Each time he appeared, the tattoo on her arm would burn and swell. When Shufan told us this, we finally noticed the letters tattooed on her arm. At that moment, the skin around it was red, swollen, and raised almost like an allergic reaction. She went on to say, "Tonight was the day. Li Zhongping promised to take me with him." That was why the terrifying scene we had just witnessed happened. After that, we took turns watching over Shufan through the night. At dawn, we contacted her family and they rushed to take her home. In the end, Shufan took a year off from school before returning. But by that time, I was already in my second year. I rarely interacted with her again, only seeing her from a distance a few times. From the looks of it, she seemed to have returned to a normal life.